Alyssa Milano, thank you so much for being with Healthline today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Great. So I wanted to get started by just asking you a little bit about your personal experience with COVID-19. You had gotten sick very early on in the pandemic when there was still a lot that we just didn't know. And so what was that like for you?
Sure. So my first symptoms weren't actually respiratory at all. They were stomach
Mm,
symptoms. And then I laid down for a nap and I woke up in full body pain. My chest started to feel like heavy, like there was an elephant that was sitting on my chest. I had a low grade temperature. Again, another reason why we were like probably not COVID, because people with COVID have high fevers, because that's what we heard.
hmm
Um,
And you had shared that you were tested, I think, two or three separate times and got false negatives each time.
yeah, my test shockingly came back negative. And then, the next day I felt worse. And then the day after that, I was like, I can't I can't breathe.
Wow.
And I called the doctor who was overseeing my care at the time, who happened to be a pulmonologist. He was a concierge doctor, and he was like, "Look, this is pneumonia. We're treating you for pneumonia." I was on an antibiotic at the time.
Mm,
Your test was negative, but he said, "I don't want you to go to the hospital. Try not to go to the hospital. They're putting people on respirators. I'm a pulmonologist. I know that is bad news. Do not go to the hospital."
wow. It is hard to imagine a scenario like that happening today.
Yeah. I mean, I finally felt well enough to say to him, "You know what? I feel like I need to get tested again."
Hmm
And he's like, "Okay, but I'm telling you, the test was negative." I said, I know, but there's a lot of news right now that the tests weren't complete when they were sent out. And, maybe it was a false negative. Maybe at this point they've gotten better at it." So I go again, negative.
Wow, that is hard to believe.
So then my best friend Allah, he said, "I guarantee you, if you go get an antibody test, I bet you have the antibodies."
Mhm.
And sure enough, I went and I got the blood draw, not the finger prick when they first started, but I got the blood draw out of my arm and I had the antibodies. And that was about 4 months after I was sick.
So,
Uh,
quite a journey in those 4 months.
it was a lot. And I got to tell you,
Yeah.
Erin, the whole time I was dealing with it, I kept thinking, because the activist in me, I was like, how are people doing this that don't have access to a concierge doctor, or
hmm
or a nebulizer in the house, or um, any of the luxuries and the privileges that I had to overcome it at home. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, part of me felt blessed, but it was very difficult.
You mentioned your activist work earlier, and I think that you're someone that people see as being unafraid to speak up and speak out about important topics. And in sharing your COVID experience, is that something that came instinctually to you, or did you have to kind of think about whether or not you were ready to be that vulnerable with so many people?
I felt like my contribution to this, and what gave my sickness purpose, would be to use my experience to really educate and empower people on that this is not a hoax, that this was not something that felt like the flu or the cold, and that this was, something that had attacked every part of my body, and I wanted people to know that.
So I wanted to shift gears for a minute and look a little future forward because right now the vaccine rollout is creating a lot of hope for people that we'll be able to get this pandemic under control. And I'm curious for you, are you still planning to get a COVID vaccine when you're eligible? And what has that conversation been like with your family, your friends, or even your followers on social?
I mean, I think people want to get the vaccine. I think people are ready. I think there is obviously a small group of anti vaxxers that are suspicious. But the majority of people in my life that I have spoken to, that I have um, read from on social media, are very much looking forward to getting the vaccination.
So before we wrap up, I wanted to ask one more question because you've talked a lot about how this year has given you the ability to slow down a lot more and spend more time with your family. And I'm just curious if there's any other unique or surprising positives that have come out of this year for you.
Once I started to feel better from COVID, I started to teach myself how to watercolor paint.
Amazing.
And it's been so special to just be able, first of all, to be really bad at something at this age is very interesting. But also to like work at it and practice at it and get better and better and to use it as one of my tools, for my mental health and well-being, has been really lovely and something that I'm really grateful that I've had.
Alyssa Milano, thank you again so much for chatting with Healthline today.
Oh, it's an honor. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for all the wonderful work that Healthline does in getting information out and taking care of people. I really appreciate it.
Thank you again. Take care.
Thank you.